views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer.
Hello, welcome to Spirit Fire Radio. It is so great to be with you. I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. Great to be here.
It is great to be here. I'm looking so forward to our discussion. So, listeners, this whole month we're talking about right speech. And at the end of our first episode, this is the third episode, and at the end of the first one, we talked about the three gates, and I found it so interesting. I said, Dorothy, can we make a whole show about these three gates? So right speech is so necessary if we're going to build anything, if we're going to grow something, if we're going to work together, which is so important to both Dorothy and I. So the both of us run educational nonprofits, and we have decided to collaborate on this creative endeavor, Spirit Fire Radio, which is really all about right speech, huh, Dorothy?
Yes, it certainly is, Steve. And I like what you said a couple of weeks ago about the importance of clothing an idea in speech in order to make it accessible to somebody else. I think that's very relevant, particularly to what we're going to talk about today.
Definitely, because, if we're going to make thoughts available to another, that means, right, we're communicating. And if we're going to work together, we've got to do that clearly, without distortion or, as we'll talk about, without undue force, right? So it's a process. We have to know ourselves. We have to refine our thoughts. We need to be able to choose our words wisely. So both of our organizations are really, really concerned with bringing clarity into one's life in group endeavors and collaboration. So right speech is really, really important in all of that. So I look forward, Dorothy, to talk about it. Do you want to go right into it, or is there a few things you'd like to say about the organizations?
Well, I think it's good to mention the organization, Steve. I'm with the School for Esoteric Studies, which offers esoteric discipleship training aimed at developing world servers, so persons who are working for the common good. And you can find out more about us at esotericstudies.net.
Beautiful. And Spirit Fire is the organization that I am on this show representing. And we as well, we are committed to educating people on the importance of consciousness and spirituality and ways to implement that in everyday life. And esotericism is quite important to Spirit Fire as well. I love that term esoteric simply because in many ways it means that which we don't readily see. So, speech, Dorothy, right? We can't see our speech, but yet our speech creates so much. As a result of our speech, we are clothing our thoughts, as you were saying, and that's how we move forward. It's how we collaborate. We become creative and we build things. So it's very important that your words are chosen wisely. And one way to test those, this has been a test throughout time. Socrates was very keen. He called it the test of three. He had I guess it was, this is all hearsay by now, but story has it that somebody came up to him with a story about one of his students. And he said, do you want to hear what I just heard about this student? He said, before you say it to me, is what you're about to tell me true? Is what you're about to tell me about this student something good? And will what you're about to tell me be useful to me? So is it true, is it good, and is it useful? And Rumi, I love Rumi. He, so poetic and simple and beautiful. He said, let that which you are about to say pass through three gates before you speak. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? So we're going to talk about all three of those on this show. Are the place that truth has within speech, and kindness and necessity. So, Dorothy, what do you say? We start with truth. That's the biggie, huh?
That's right. And I'd like to start with a quote from Albert Einstein, who said, "Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters." And I just, as I was listening to you, Steve, we talked the first week of the month about right speech, mainly in terms of sound. We talked last week about the role of silence, and we're back now talking about, or we may be tempted to focus only on speech as sound. I just want to remind people that the written word also carries vibration as speech. And we have lots of examples recently of the use of social media like Twitter to put out speech that may or may not be truthful.
Well, I wonder what you're talking about when you say that, Dorothy. Because I think this week we're about to really, really like hit a home run. We've been sort of beating around the bush of our, at least, the president of the United States and his passion for Twitter. So I don't know how we can talk about truthful speech and not, talk about the elephant in the room, which is, I want to repeat the quote you said, because I have it in front of me as well, because it's so important. Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters. So trust, it's huge when we talk about truth, right?
Yes, it is. And one of the things, you mentioned, what is truth? And I think we need to keep in mind it's, true to whom, true when. And we have the whole issue very lively in the political environment of, is truth simply situational? Are there alternate facts, as has been put out? Or is there some absolute element to truth? And the way I think about it is when I hear something that I know to be truthful, or that seems to me to be truthful, there is a very clear resonance to it. It's like this very pure sound. And when people speak things that are not true, it's like it comes through with this static. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I feel like sometimes I can almost sense it with my emotional body. If I'm really tapped into what I'm feeling, something inside me goes, oh, that doesn't feel quite right,
Yeah. So we have this very, I don't want to sidestep what you brought up before, because I think it's important for our listeners that we recognize, we witness, we don't step away from the fact that what is being modeled by the head of the U.S. government is a series of untruths. And it starts to create an environment where untruth is almost acceptable. So you have Trump saying during the campaign that he saw Muslims celebrating on the roofs of New Jersey buildings during 9/11, which absolutely didn't happen. Or that Senator Ted Cruz's father was involved in the assassination of J.F. Kennedy, and he wasn't. That inner city crime is soaring to record levels. It isn't. That the real unemployment rate is 42%. It isn't. It goes on and on like that in terms of things that he asserts. And of course, the more recent ones that have functioned well as political distractions, that Obama was bugging him. It's important for us to understand the impact on us if we're continually having to process untruth. It's stressful, but it also starts to strain our ability to recognize and hold to what is truthful, to assert what is truthful.
Absolutely. And you know, and the major, we call them flip-flops. And I don't know that actually is, you know, I find that actually be a little bit too light, actually, because it doesn't force someone to take responsibility. But, you know, I also find that during the campaign, he made grandiose statements, you know, many of which you listed, that so many voters adhered to and said, I'm behind that. I'm completely behind that. And when it turned out that these weren't true, it leaves people empty-handed. They actually trusted this man and then voted for him. He became president. And then a lot of the a lot of the statements that people stood behind him for, he actually did the exact opposite, which leaves them completely bewildered. So now you've got nobody happy in the country. You know, you've got people who didn't agree with him, people who believed his truth, but his truth was actually a lie. And now you've basically just got everybody in a sort of state of disarray. And, you know, when we talk about building a more perfect union, well, we've got to do that together. And when everybody is being misled, or many people are being misled by the leader, certainly that's impossible to do. So it becomes tough, because trust is absolutely essential.
It is, and I just want to mention, while we're on the political, before we return to the personal, that the U.S. government is set up with a series of checks and balances. Congress is supposed to be a check on the power of the executive branch, but Congress is not holding the executive branch to account on these, quote, flip-flops. And so what you have again is you have this weakening of the fabric of people being able to trust and collaborate. And anybody that's worked in the area of negotiation, where you are needing to bring together parties that have different values and are struggling to find some kind of common ground, knows how important and fragile that trust is, that you be able to believe what it is that someone says, and that you can count on their following through on what they said they would do.
Because quite literally, a distorted truth creates a distorted outcome. And then it's got to be rebuilt. You know, we have to find the truth and rebuild it from there. So it just simply doesn't work. I want to talk a bit about silence, you know, in the role of Congress, just because I think it's important before we move on. But we're going to go to a break. And when we come back, I want to just go a little bit more into what you were saying in that regard. So we'll be right back, listeners. We're going to talk about right speech some more.
Tune in to The Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
Get ready to experience Truth Talk Radio with host Deb Acker. Tune in to Truth Talk Radio each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com to illuminate the truth in your daily life as you experience life, love, and abundance from a whole new perspective. This hit show will leave you feeling lighter and bring you into a place of infinite possibilities every day in every way. Visit TruthTalkRadioshow.com for upcoming transformative topics and guests.
Want to help reduce the divisiveness in our world? Each year, the School for Esoteric Studies holds a subjective group conference. This year, our focus is on unity in diversity, the science of right human relations. From April till June, we will meditate together, study relevant writings, and share practical strategies for improving how we relate with each other. Join us to help build inclusive communities. Check on our subjective group conference at esotericstudies.net. That's the School for Esoteric Studies at esotericstudies.net.
Are you looking for the perfect setting for your next workshop or retreat? At Spirit Fire Meditative Retreat Center, cultivating consciousness is what we do best. Our guests count on us to create an atmosphere that supports serenity and well-being. We lead from the heart and create space for the mind. Freshly prepared meals designed with local and organic ingredients, 95 acres of beautiful woods and pastures, and a facility built with green in mind. This is what you'll find at Spirit Fire. For more information, visit spiritfireretreatcenter.com.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. Just before the break, we were talking about truth and how imperative it is that your words be truthful. And Dorothy, you had mentioned about Congress. We were talking a bit about politics and this idea of fake news, alternate facts, and the fact that the Congress is a check and balance, and we've so often seen the president of the United States actually speak mistruths. And he doesn't seem to have anyone except the media who gets constantly downplayed within the system, anybody really checking that or actually calling him on that or asking that he tell the truth at the very least. So could you say a bit more about the role you were talking about Congress?
Sure. And it's interesting to me that that congressional leaders, especially the Republicans, will say when asked, do you believe that to be true, like about Obama bugging Trump Tower? And they'll say no, but they don't say Trump lied and he should not lie, and they don't ask him to stop lying. And this gets back to something that we talked about last week, whereas one of the roles of silence is actually to deny the truth.
Right.
If you don't speak out, then you are allowing whatever was said, whatever happened, to be considered reality, to be considered the truth. And so we have to be very, very careful about making sure that we do speak out to correct untruths. But the other thing that we need to be extremely cautious about is when we speak partial truths, or what we call white lies sometimes, where we're trying to save face or maintain social status, or we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And having grown up in Asia, I'm very sensitive to this because that's a large dynamic there. And yet, if you don't understand how it's being played out, you can accept some of these social niceties as the truth, as opposed to a way to get along with each other. And as we mentioned before the break, it's the trust that is built through using through being truthful is absolutely critical to our being able to work together.
Absolutely.
And being able to get along.
And not just misguide each other. I also find that people will say things that aren't true just to embellish a situation, to sort of bring a spotlight to themselves. And it just leads people in a wrong direction. And you have to realize that the person that's receiving what you were saying is actually not only creating a picture of yourself as the person who uttered those words, but of the situation or the story that you're portraying. It makes me think of the Kurosawa film Rashomon, which won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film and put Japanese film on the map. And it was about 4 eyewitnesses that saw a crime and all had a completely different version of what they saw. And they all believed they were guilty. So it wasn't to sort of blame another, but they all saw something different, and they believed it to be the truth. So mistruth is around there. It's around, and we people are fallible sometimes. But it's important that we take responsibility for our words, and that they are the truth. And if we know that something that we're hearing or that somebody else is saying is not the truth, I love that. And you brought that up so much, Dorothy, the last couple of weeks, which is to remain silent is actually adding to this environment of non-truth.
It can be harmful in and of itself. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we forget is that our memory is fallible, and because it's easy to think of our memory as being like a photograph that we took and then we just stored it in a filing cabinet in our mind, but that's not the way that we store it. We store it in bits and pieces, and we retrieve those bits and pieces in the context of an emotional environment or a way that we're thinking about things. So we need to be extremely mindful ourselves of our own process when we go about saying, this is what happened, this is what is truthful.
Right. And when emotions are involved, we have to really, really keep ourselves in check, because often that emotion can distort, especially if it is on the lower vibrational scale of emotions. If we are feeling hurt or sad or angry and we are speaking about something or a memory, it can definitely be tainted. So that makes me think of kindness, Dorothy. Can we move on to kindness? That is the second gate. Because absolutely, it's also just as equally important. My goodness, if we were all to really watch exactly what is said, not only from our own lips, but in group conversation, on television, when we're exposed to words, sentences, ideas being spoken, how much of that is actually unkind in its nature? It's quite a bit, I would say. Yeah, and I'd like to make a distinction, which comes out very nicely in this quote from Larry Lambert. Treat others as you wish to be treated. Don't just be nice, but be kind to other people. And, when I think of nice, I think of, you say something complimentary, you say something that's socially desirable. But basically, you're trying to position yourself as a person that's important or valued or whatever. It's about you, whereas being kind is about the other. Yeah, it's almost collaborative. That word keeps coming up, but when we are kind to another, we're actually engaging with them. It's almost like we're co-creating. We're opening the door and saying, I'm offering this to you. Will you receive it? There's an exchange. Whereas niceties are sometimes just put upon another. Can be a one-way street. Yeah. And to me, there's an element of kindness that is it's part of the recognition that we are all one, and it helps to build that fabric, which is what gets weakened, through untruth or unkindness. And I just wanted to share an example. It's a small example, but I currently live in Canada, and I went down to the U.S. to do a workshop. I'm a dual citizen, and I was just down for the day. I didn't have any U.S. money with me. I had a credit card. I figured that was fine. And before the workshop, I needed to get something to eat. I stopped to buy a breakfast sandwich, and the place where I stopped, their credit card machine was not working. And so I had no way to pay for it. And I was feeling really frustrated because I was tight on time.
I didn't know if I had time to stop someplace else. I didn't actually know where else I might stop. And the woman behind me in line leaned over and very quietly, not so anybody else would hear, said, "What is it that you want?" And I said, "I'm trying to get this breakfast sandwich." And she said, "Let me." And she just put the money on the counter.
Oh,
and I didn't know her. I never saw her again. There was no reason why she had to do that. But that, to me, epitomized kindness.
And how did you feel?
I felt fantastic. I mean, I felt it was like being hugged, right? I felt enveloped by this warm energy. I felt very connected to her. Yeah.
And see, I love that about kindness, that it's actually easy. You know, it is actually something that we can try out almost like a test if it's not something we would normally do, because people will receive it. You know, it actually frees others to sort of tap into their own inner goodness and their capacity to receive, to give, to feel connected. And it just opens your heart. Like you say, you know, it felt like a warm hug. And it was just a simple offering of offering some good American cash for a sandwich. How beautiful. So, you know, I'd love to talk about, why are we unkind? You know, that seems like such an easy situation, right, Dorothy? But does that happen to all of us very often, which is always a head scratcher to me? You know, like, why are we unkind? You know, why would we speak unkindly? We see it all the time. I think of reality television. You know, we see others being entertained by the misery or absolute downright embarrassment of others. And we laugh, we come together, and you think, is this the only way we can do it? You know, is to really put other people down so we feel good. And I just, sometimes it's one thing that just baffles me, how unkind speech is so prevalent and why that is so. Why do you think?
Well, I think what we get back to is people not understanding who we really are. And I go back to that, you know, that quote, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're not human beings struggling to figure out what spirituality is all about. But we forget. We forget that we are all part of the one life. If I speak unkindly to you, and especially if I do it publicly, you know, I get a laugh and all of that, I may feel, great about myself in the moment. But what I'm doing is I'm affirming an unreality, which is that somehow I'm separate from you. But the reality is that if I hurt you, I am hurting myself. I'm making myself a smaller person. I'm forgetting who I really am, which is I am connected to you. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I want to talk about that, about bullying a bit. There's so much going on. We're hearing and seeing so much of it in this technological age where everything is recorded, and we actually get to look at ourselves because you know, we get caught on tape if that's the way you are behaving day to day. So we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, can we talk about bullying a bit? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Perfect. We'll be right back.
Chris Stanis is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
What if your body and mind were the compasses to the secrets, mysteries, and magic of life? Glenna Rice, co-host of The Questionable Parents, is inviting you to access all that is possible. Glenna is a 10-year certified veteran access consciousness facilitator who offers an amazing variety of life-changing classes and workshops. Work with Glenna from anywhere with teleclasses and workshops all over the globe. To learn more and see Glenna's current schedule of events, classes, and workshops, visit glennarice.com.
Interested in deepening your spiritual practice? The School for Esoteric Studies offers online training to spiritual seekers from all paths of life and individual coaching. Our courses synthesize Eastern and Western spiritual traditions based on meditation, study, and service applied to everyday life. To learn more about our courses and services, please visit www.esotericstudies.net.
What is a brilliant culture, and how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you align your culture with your business strategy for exceptional results. Looking for a culture that drives organizational excellence? Listen to Cultural Brilliance Radio, the second and fourth Friday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit culturalbrilliance.com.
Awareness is universal. Establishing a living awareness through meditation brings peaceful, healthy, and creative well-being into your everyday life. The practice of living awareness, Spirit Fire's own meditation practice, is built on this belief and is designed for every level of practitioner. Each year, Spirit Fire hosts living awareness meditation retreats that allow you to explore the practice in depth at our retreat center in beautiful Western Massachusetts. Introduce yourself to meditation and the practice at the Foundation's retreat. Attend, in silence, a silent meditation retreat focused on mindfulness, presence, and nature, or be engaged with the meditation sittings themselves at the Deepening Retreat. Start adding to your awareness and attend a meditation retreat designed to cultivate consciousness in your everyday life. For details on attending a Living Awareness meditation retreat, visit upcoming events at www.spiritfire.com.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. I am here with my co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle, and we are talking about right speech this whole month. Such an important topic for creating a better world. You know, we've got to really be mindful of what we say, how we say it, because it affects others. And just before the break, we were talking about unkind speech. Kindness, asking yourself, are the words I'm saying kind? Is a wonderful question and a wonderful observation to observe words and see where they are on that scale. I know myself, I have been addicted, and I that word, right, to 13 Reasons Why, which is a best-selling novel that was just turned into a TV series on Netflix. Anybody that's got Netflix, it just was released, I think, this last weekend, and it's amazing. It's a beautiful 13-part series, and it's really all about bullying. And it's about a group of friends trying to understand the reason why a friend of theirs committed suicide from being bullied. And what I find so interesting about this show, it is showing so clearly, so beautifully and responsibly the effects of not only harsh words, but of not saying something when harsh words are affecting another. So that's such an important part, I find, with bullying, that it's as much about what is not said as what about what is said. So it's such an important topic today. So many children and teenagers being affected by it. And I would say, Dorothy, that it's interesting that in this day and age with social media and everybody with an iPhone and a smartphone, I've enjoyed this show so much because, you know, it was the 80s when I was in high school, my goodness. And things have changed so much where students get immediate feedback. They get to see themselves, hear themselves, see the effects of their actions. And kindness is just so important. So offering kindness to someone who may be bullying and or who may have been bullied. They say that kindness is the most supportive action to victims of bullying because it restores their faith, and that is what is missing. So really an important topic, I find, these days.
Yes, and it's linked, unfortunately, to what I see is there, you know, a number of different disconnects in our society, not recognizing that we are all part of the whole, that we are all responsible for caring and compassionate relationships with each other. There was a week or so ago, there was a picture on the news, maybe it was more recent than that, of a woman in a subway who had gotten her head and her handbag caught in the door. She was trying to get off the subway, and the door had closed before she was able to do that. And the footage that you can see online shows at least 5 people walking by and doing nothing to help her.
Yeah.
She was finally rescued, but that kind of indifference is chilling to me. And it's really good to see instances where people step up and where they are kind and supportive. I just want to mention one that was on TV a week or so ago. There's a program on MSNBC called The Last Word. The anchor is Lawrence O'Donnell. And he was talking about the bullying that Bill O'Reilly is doing of Wendy Walsh, who is a woman who has stood up and said that she has been sexually harassed by him. And he's saying that, he's going to sue her and, make her really sorry, in other words, just trying to get her to go away and be quiet because of that. And so what Lawrence did online was he took out his phone and he said, I am sending this tweet out saying, if you're going to sue Wendy, sue me too, because I believe she's telling the truth. And I want you to retweet if you support this. And the next night he reported that there were over 40,000 retweets. I don't know what the ultimate number was in the end, but I thought that was such a beautiful public display of support for someone who was being bullied.
Yeah. It also affirms what you were saying about the written word being speech, and again, modern social media, if you've typed it or texted it or tweeted it, it is the same as your voice, and it is heard for better or for worse, right?
That's right.
So let's talk about it being necessary. Is it better? Is it worse? Well, was it necessary at all? So what makes something necessary to say?
Well, Steve, I'd like to start us off with a quote again, because I love doing this when I can find a good one. So this is from Oliver Wendell Holmes. He said, "Don't flatter yourself that friendship authorizes you to say disagreeable things to your intimates. On the contrary, the nearer you come in relation with a person, the more necessary do tact and courtesy become." And to me, that's linked to one of the strong themes in the Ageless Wisdom, which is the importance of avoiding criticism. I'm not talking about feedback that's been requested. I'm talking about instead of paying attention to what you're doing, paying attention to everybody else and being critical of them.
Right.
That is not necessary. It's not helpful, right? You don't know where they are on their path. You don't know what they're struggling with. So get your own house in order is basically what that's all about.
We have said it time and time again that in the Ageless Wisdom, it is said the greatest human heresy, and those 3 words, the greatest human heresy, is separativeness, and that criticism it'll take you right there. You want to separate yourself from the pack or from another or from inclusivity, criticize. And boy, I'm a Virgo, so Virgo, we love to discern, and sometimes it can verge on criticism. And I know for myself, I've had to watch that. I love that you said in the quote that friendship, authorizes you to say something. I mean, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but what I pulled out of that is that the closer you come to someone, that it is really important to watch what you say, but I would add to that you also have the right and opportunity, and sort of it is your duty to watch what your friends are saying and watch what others are saying. I know when I was in my 20s, I will never forget it. It was when gay rights was a pretty new topic. People were talking about it out loud all the time. And I was in a very fancy restaurant and with my best friend, and we were waiting to be seated. And there was a group of people, and they were talking about a gay mayor. And they were just talking about it being the end of the city if this gay mayor gets elected. And I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where we had a gay mayor. He was amazing. He was our mayor for many, many years. People talked about him being gay before anybody talked about the gays. It was great. It opened lots of doors. And I didn't like what they were saying, and I had no business being a part of it, and I inserted myself right in that conversation, and I criticized what they were saying. I had no right to do so, and boy, did everyone in that group let me have it. My best friend stepped in and said, I am so sorry for my friend. He knows not what he does, and he apologized for me, and I was so humbled, and I will never forget it. So, we really have to watch ourselves, even if we think we're right and it's our truth. It was so unnecessary for me to say that. That scenario and that mayor will play out as it will, and it was just none of my business. So friends are really important.
Well, and the tricky thing here, let's just be really explicit about it. We have said that it's important to not remain silent when something is being said that is untrue or is unkind. And that now we're saying, don't insert yourself where you don't belong. So I think it's really important that we are consciously aware of developing our own internal, what's called moral compass.
Yes.
Of when is it that harm is going to come if we don't speak up, as opposed to when is it that we just think we're better than somebody and so we're going to speak up.
Right. And I love that we're so articulate with that, because what I would say is the way I spoke was unkind. I was being critical, and if I had engaged in a conversation that was constructive and not emotional and reactive, and I was able to say, hey, guess what? I grew up in a town that had a gay mayor. I'd love to talk to you about what my experience was with that. And I was too immature. So my words had a tincture to them that was not helpful and therefore unnecessary. So I love that you brought clarity to that.
Yeah.
It was not for the greater good. And had I been more mature, I think I would have been able to articulate myself and perhaps gotten a conversation that it could have been necessary or helpful. And I don't think one was going to be harmed by what they were saying. They were simply having a conversation,
Right. Well, and let's look at another aspect of this, which is gossip.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. When you think about, is this necessary? All too often, and I know I've done it too, we will say something not because it's necessary, not because it is helpful to the common good, but to be accepted, to look like we're in the know. We know something that other people don't. And the gossip is at least usually unnecessary, if not untrue and unkind. And the thought forms linger. And this is, I think, one of the things we want to keep emphasizing, Steve, is that these words that we're talking about, even if they are written, even if they are just in a mental thought form, they have energy, they have power.
Absolutely.
And we need to be very careful what energy, what power we're putting out there.
Absolutely. It affects people. And again, back to bullying and listeners, man, that show, 13 Reasons Why, is just so beautiful and relevant for today and actually for our conversation. So Dorothy, we're at another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about right speech.
Tune in to Dynamics of Diversity Radio, scripting the new narrative for immigration with leading experts Kripa Upadhyaya and Steve Tanijo on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This show will remove the noise that often accompanies discussions on this topic and share a new perspective on the dynamics of immigration and diversity, ever reminding us that together we are all at the core of innovation, excellence, and positive change. Visit orbitlawpllc.com for upcoming topics.
Awareness is universal. Establishing a living awareness through meditation brings peaceful, healthy, and creative well-being into your everyday life. The practice of living awareness, Spirit Fire's own meditation practice, is built on this belief and is designed for every level of practitioner. Each year, Spirit Fire hosts living awareness meditation retreats that allow you to explore the practice in depth at our retreat center in beautiful Western Massachusetts. Introduce yourself to meditation and the practice at the Foundation's retreat. Attend, in silence, a silent meditation retreat focused on mindfulness, presence, and nature, or be engaged with the meditation sittings themselves at the Deepening Retreat. Start adding to your awareness and attend a meditation retreat designed to cultivate consciousness in your everyday life. For details on attending a Living Awareness meditation retreat, visit upcoming events at www.spiritfire.com.
Gifted intuitive healer and spiritual teacher Sarah Luce brings her unique style to the hit show Small Steps, Big Breakthrough Radio on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in each month as Sarah turns reality on end and shows us how to experience expansive results with simple yet powerful steps. Expect an enlightening bend on what you currently believe is possible. For show details and upcoming topics, visit sarahloos.com. That's SARALOOS.com.
Want to help reduce the divisiveness in our world? Each year, the School for Esoteric Studies holds a subjective group conference. This year, our focus is on unity in diversity, the science of right human relations. From April till June, we will meditate together, study relevant writings, and share practical strategies for improving how we relate with each other. Join us to help build inclusive communities. Check on our subjective group conference at esotericstudies.net. That's the School for Esoteric Studies at esotericstudies.net.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spirit Fire Radio. Steve and I are talking about right speech, and we're talking about it in relation to what some people call the gates. We've talked about is the speech true? Is what you say true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And Steve, I'd like to move us to the fourth one, which is, does it improve on silence? Because I think that's very related to what we were talking about just before the break. Is what we say moving us forward towards the common good, or would silence be better?
Yeah. Does it actually create something worthwhile that's better than silence? We spent a whole show talking about the beauty of silence, and so it's a good question. Does it improve upon the silence? There's a quote that I have that says, the tongue is liable for 4 big errors: uttering falsehood, scandalizing, finding fault with others, and excessive articulation. These have to be avoided if there is to be peace for the individual as well as society. So, it's like we've really got to be certain that we are building something worthwhile, that we are creating something that is worthy of, that wasn't there before, that we're not breaking down that which we've built through untruths or unkindness or unnecessary talk, but that we're actually being co-creative and building something that we care about. So definitely asking, is it worthwhile, kind of, right? Is it worthy? Exactly.
And actually, I'd like to bring in here something that I think we've referred to before, but we haven't really talked much about, and that is, it goes along with being necessary, and does it improve on the silence? And that is, what do you do when you hear somebody making a harmful joke? And the remaining silent is one approach, because if we laugh, even if we don't say anything, the laughter itself is a sound, right? It's a form of speech. It's saying, yeah, that's right. So we don't want to do that. But we have the issue then of, can we do anything other than simply not respond? And how do you handle this, Steve?
Well, it's tough. Candor comes easy to me. So I am certainly one who will speak right up and say, that's just wrong. I have definitely flatlined jokes, and my friends know not to tell sort of jokes that are marginal. Again, like those four things, that uttering falsehood. Usually a joke is usually exaggerating something that's totally not true. It's usually scandalizing. It usually faults another. It puts somebody else down, and it's just excessive and unnecessary. So those four big errors are usually there. So I will usually very kindly say, like, hey, let's think about what you just said. Like, I sort of always take it to the pondering, to picking it apart and sort of dissecting it, which is not always the most thrilling. It's kind of a downer. But I will ask people just to take a look at what they're saying, and let's like talk about what that joke might say. Or I'll just say, oh, that doesn't make me feel very good. Why would you say that? And have somebody think about what the joke they just said.
I find for myself, because I grew up in an environment where one of the strong values was to not make somebody else uncomfortable, that it's difficult for me to have that kind of response when I think I'm going to make the other person feel awkward, even though I don't agree with what they said, even though I feel that it is harmful, that the joke is harmful.
And even though it made you feel uncomfortable. So I guess it's like justice is always very big for me. And if somebody has told me a joke and it made me feel uncomfortable, it's not like I want to make them feel uncomfortable as a result, but I want to say, wow, that really made me feel uncomfortable, and just realize that you've put something out there. So it's interesting that, it makes you feel uncomfortable, but yet the culture that you grew up in says, well, just sit with that, right?
Yeah. So what I find for myself is that I spend energy on rehearsal. So when I've heard something like that, I mean, usually what happens, the most that I can do sometimes in the situation is simply to not respond. So I'm not laughing, I'm not giving them the response that they want. And then I go away, and then I think of the perfect rejoinder, what I could have said. So I pay attention to that. I rehearse that so that the next time around I can actually use that. And so it's gradually coming more easily to me, but it has been something that I've needed to rehearse outside of the situation.
And that's a part of silence, right? You are finding a way to say it that will improve upon your silence, meaning you have actually taken action. And it's beautiful that you would pause and find the right way to do it so that your words are received well, and that there's your truth, which is such a big part of it. It's been wonderful conversation, Dorothy. I know we're getting toward the end of the show, and I just thought it would be fun if we end on some words. There are so many words that have changed mankind, that have changed sort of the human experience, and have, I think of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, and these words, they are imprinted on my psyche, to judge someone by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. I don't have that written anywhere. That comes straight to my brain. So are there any quotes that you've said so many quotes, but are there any that just come to mind right away for you that have really been right speech at its best?
Well, I think of President Obama's speech where he said, "We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek." That was very meaningful to me. It stuck with me.
Nice. Beautiful.
And it draws forth that energy of our all being part of the one life, of our being together in a venture, our being together in building the common good.
Yeah. So necessary. Beautiful. Well, we are going to talk next week about how we cultivate right speech. So, right, we've talked about silence. We've talked about what is right speech. We've talked about how to take a look at your words to make sure that they are correct and they're going to add to something. But how do you really cultivate it? How do you cultivate it in your everyday life? And what are some exercises and what are ways that you can practice bringing right speech into your everyday? So I look forward to that next week, Dorothy. Just to let people know, if you have any ideas, anything you'd like us to talk about in terms of right speech, please feel free to send us an email. You can send that to spiritfireradio@spiritfire.com. And please visit spiritfire.com if you'd like to learn more about Spirit Fire and School for Esoteric Studies. Dorothy, you want to give them your address?
esotericstudies.net. esotericstudies.net.
Wonderful. And that website, both of our websites, really so much valuable information about the spiritual path and ways that you can engage. Spirit Fire offers the practice of living awareness, which is our own meditation practice, and the School for Esoteric Studies. So much on their website, so much to read and learn about esotericism and the path of discipleship. So, Dorothy, I look forward to next week. We're going to talk about ways to create right speech and make it a part of your life. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Me too. Take care.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.